Can you believe it is that time already? It is time for December's garden chores. And I'm out here, just had that hot cup of hot cocoa, and I'm coming out here and I'm probably gonna get me something else whenever I get back inside because it's a little chilly out here. Let's go ahead and go through December. It's not a whole lot, but we just do have some maintenance to do if you don't have crops. If you have crops, then you might have a little bit more to do, especially if you're in some of those warmer regions than I am. So let's get started. If you've been watching my videos, you know my garden is kind of a mess. It's not completely done yet, but I do have it put to bed for winter, especially those beds that I have, and we're going to talk a little bit about that too. December isn't as lean as what we might think, especially if you live in some of those warmer climates. I do not have anything growing right now. I am going to experiment, I think, a little bit. I'm going to start some winterish, like greens or cold weather crops. I think I'm just going to try it. I think I've got plenty of seed, and I'm going to try some cabbages and some kale and things like that that doesn't mind as much the cold weather. I'm going to start those inside and maybe get like a bed out here going, or maybe one up by the house. I do have that cold frame, so I could, or I have that window, I should say. That's cold frame's not done. I could maybe bring something out here or put it in the greenhouse. We do have winter brassicas that we could be harvesting right now. Some of those brassicas, like some of that kale, loves this cold weather, and some of them taste better after they've had a little bit of a frost or a little bit of cold weather. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. One of the great things about this cold weather, though, is that most of the infestations of all those pesky pests, this cold weather, they don't like it, so they're hiding, or they're dead, or they're in the ground, or they're getting ready to come out next year, unfortunately. So that is one good thing. But we do have some top tasks for December, and we're going to go over those. So we can be harvesting if we had those fall and winter crops out, which I didn't because, I redesigned my raised bed garden. Now, this is the time when you can plant garlic, you can plant your rhubarb, bare root fruit trees, and bushes, and all that, as long as your ground's not frozen. Ours is not frozen yet, and so ours would be good if we wanted to do that. This is the time you can prune those apples and those pears and the grapevines if it's not too cold. You don't want to prune your blueberries or your plums or cherry trees. The blueberries, you want to make sure you're doing that like when they start to bud in the early spring, so you can see where the blueberries are going to be, and you don't want to trim all that off. It worked really well for me earlier this year, so I'm going to be doing that again because they're going to need a trim. They have grown so much. You want to check your nets over your crops that you have out because the pests may not be, but we do have birds that love those greens. There's actually quite a bit that we could be harvesting. Really depends on where you're at, but you could be doing celery, kale, winter radishes, cauliflowers, carrots, rutabagas. You could be getting Brussels sprouts if the pests didn't get them. But leeks and parsnips and turnips, even, kohlrabi, which I wish I still had. This is also a good time that you want to store your crops. So if you still have things that you haven't gotten out, then this would be the time to do that. This would be if you had pumpkins, if you had any squashes, if you have cured those, I'm going in the greenhouse out of the wind. If you had cured any of those, then this is the time that you want to get those stored in the proper place. Now I have a couple of tromboscinis in here. These are not stored for winter in here. They're actually going to go to the chickens. I will cut one up. I may cut one up today, actually. I found a stray watermelon this morning and took it out to them, so they may get this tomorrow. If you've let your crops cure properly, then this is the time to put those in storage. So depending on where your storage is, like I don't have a basement, I don't have a root cellar, so mine have to kind of go in my pantry, which is not ideal because my potatoes are already putting out, like they have eyes and they're already trying to grow in the dark. So I may have to try what this book says with my potatoes. We want to make sure we store our crops for winter. We want to make sure we store them well, and we want to make sure that they are cool, dry, and if possible, dark. So a garage or shed would be good as long as you don't want to get mice and stuff in there, but you want a dry, cool air with good ventilation. You don't want somewhere that's humid. I think that's what my pantry, I think that's why they're growing the eyes, is because it's not exactly dry. It's dark, like they're in a dark place and it's not real warm in there. but it's not as cool. So I probably maybe need to get a place in the garage, maybe in a tote or something where the mice can't get in there, because they will. So we don't want that. I'm not feeding the pests in the garage my potatoes. Okay, now something else we want to make sure is before we store them, we also want to make sure we regularly check them, I guess, before and during. While they're stored, we don't want to just leave them and not check on them, because if one is, maybe we missed something before we stored it, maybe one of them had a spot or something that we missed, and that's going to cause disease. We don't want that to spread to everything else. So regular checks are really good. So each time you take something out of storage, like I checked on them the other day, I got potatoes out of storage, looked at them. Yeah, I probably need to do something with them because they're all producing eyes. So just as you pull stuff out, or, maybe just put it down on your calendar to regularly check your stored crops, because you put in a lot of work and you don't want those to all ruin. So we also got some other things that we can store as well. This book just has some suggestions on when you want to store carrots or pumpkins. You want to store them on like something soft, like straw and such, not on hard surfaces. He has good ideas for storing cabbages and beans and potatoes, which is where I just learned about that. Onions and apples and pears and rutabagas and such. So it's a really good idea to know how to store them so that they last long enough for winter. Now, some of you may be canning it and may not be storing it, like your pumpkins. You may not be storing them, or you might be freezing the flesh on the inside. You might be canning it. You might be canning your potatoes, and that's fine. If you don't have somewhere to put it, then you could keep out enough you can use in a little bit, and then you can can the rest. There are a few things we can sow or plant in December, and of course, this is the quietest month of the year, it might be, but we can still get some stuff in the ground like garlic, rhubarb, fruit trees, raspberries, blackberries, like we mentioned earlier. There's just a few things that we can get in the ground ready for next year. Dividing rhubarb. This is something I might do next year, the year after, but I definitely don't have to do it right now. Now, something else that's important that we could be doing for our beds, let's go out there and I'll show you one thing that I do. So I like to get my beds ready for winter, and I like to do that with shredded leaves because it breaks down, it adds organic matter, and it's cold out here. It adds organic matter, and it also keeps the soil from being bare to the elements. So we can try winter digging. We can add compost at this time. We want to top our beds with something. We can do compost, or we can do leaf. We could cover our beds with plastic. If you have, wood chips or pine chips, you could use those as well. Something to kind of keep the dirt from being exposed to everything, and just kind of add some extra organic matter. They really think I'm going to give them something. They're over there eating the watermelon that I found out in the garden today. I got all the chickens in here now, even the littler ones. They like to get out though. I know here, now depending on where you live, here I would definitely pull the last of any of my root crops, because we are getting down into the 20s here soon of an evening, and only up into the 40s over the next few days. So anything might get a little too chilly in the ground. So this would definitely be a good time to pull those out, get those either, canned, get those preserved, or get them stored somewhere where you can keep them over winter. Okay, so I just read something interesting. This book suggests removing any brown or yellow leaves from spring cabbages and Brussels sprouts, and to hill up the Brussels sprout stems if they're unsteady, and to cover them with nets to keep the birds away. So I'm curious, can you leave Brussels sprout stems in the ground, cover them up, and they will produce Brussels sprouts in the spring? Because if that's the case, I need to do that, because that way they'll produce them early and I won't have to worry about pests as much. Does that work? Do you know? Have you tried that? Because now I'm really curious. Okay, well, this is a good time to prepare ground for new fruit trees if that's something you want to do. This is also a good time to weed around your fruit trees. So we always want to make sure, even in the winter, that our crops, like I've said before, are not competing for those nutrients. So we don't want weeds and we don't want things like that. Really probably need to mulch around them, put some leaves down, some organic matter that might break down over the winter for them. Like we said earlier, you do want to prune your apple and pear trees, which I have some I need to do. You do want to just prune, you want to check wires, you want to clean your tools, clean your pots, your seed trays, all that stuff. I don't normally do that, and I probably should. So that is probably something I need to do. I need to get all my stuff and clean it up really well before I even start some new seeds maybe. Or maybe just use, you know, what I'm going to use and then clean the rest. I don't know. We'll see. So December pests and diseases. We do have some stuff to check though. We need to check our nets if you have things out to keep the birds off. Not necessarily the other pests that we dealt with. But you just want to remove your dying leaves. You want to dig over your soil, check for slugs, mice, rats, all that good stuff. Keep an eye on all of your stored fruits and things. Now, if you spray your trees and bushes with a plant oil-based winter wash to help control those aphids and things and winter moths, you can. You just want to keep an eye on. Keep an eye on all your plants, even in the winter. Kind of do, you know, walkthroughs if you have things growing, just to make sure there's no disease or anything going on that you are going to miss and is going to cause you issues in the spring. All right, that is it for December. But I have some stuff I need to do. I need to check on those potatoes, and I need to go ahead and figure out what I'm going to start in my seed trays, and then I need to clean the rest of my stuff. And I need to do that and make sure that I'm not, you know, contaminating everything. I've not ever done it before. I think I've cleaned my pruning shears and that's about it. So I do need to clean the other stuff. But this book has been really helpful. And look, we're only a little over halfway. And I was like, wow, what else are we going to be going over? But there is lots of good information in the rest of this book. There's actually a crop planner. So he goes over all like vegetables, when to plant them, gives you extra information on them. So if you haven't gotten the kitchen garden book, then I suggest getting it on Amazon or wherever you might. I don't get anything from the link that I'm going to put below, but he also has some other books as well. So I like to get books from the library. So if you want to get it, try to get it from your library to see if you really would like it, and then find it used somewhere is what I love to do, especially on Amazon or other places. And if you have any good used book places that you like to shop, let me know below, because I'm all about that, reusing those books and getting them for less. And also, you know, it just helps out with the garden budget and everything. And I love books, so I have a few of them. But I hope you enjoyed this really short December garden chores video. We're doing some, well, I'm not really doing some winter gardening. I hope to be doing some winter gardening, so we'll see. If you can see that caterpillar tunnel out there, yeah, still doesn't have plastic on it. I know. I'm doing super well in that. So I still have hope. Still have hope. The year's not up yet. It's a little chilly, so I don't know. We're going to have to pick like a day that's not windy. Everybody's, you know, I don't know. Maybe today. Hey, maybe today. I've got 2 kids here at home. Neither one of them go to school or work, so maybe it would be a good day to do that. I don't know. But anyways, I hope you are having a lovely holiday season, no matter what is going on. And I do really hope you enjoyed this video. And be sure to like and subscribe. And don't forget, as always, to be lovely lights today. I did not wear appropriate attire out here, or gloves, which I can't wear gloves while I'm videoing. But it's a little chilly, so I think I'm going in and going to get me something hot to drink.